Hey, what's up? Welcome back to another video here on Freebowl Photos. Today, we're going to take a look at using ON1 Photo Raw to move a ball in an image. And I don't know all of the use cases that this may be practical or necessary, but if there's anything that you need to move around in a photo from one place to the next, and you don't want to use generative tools or anything like that, then I'm going to show you some ways that you can do this inside of ON1 Photo Raw. Now, in the comment section below, I want you to leave your use case for this particular technique if there's something that you see, just so that way I understand. But it was something that was requested, and so here I am showing you exactly how to do it. Of course, if you like to pick up ON1 Photo Raw and save a little bit of money in the process, consider using the coupon code FreebowPhotos20 when you check out. I do make a commission from everyone who uses it, but it's at no extra cost to you. And last but not least, if you are a member of the FWP Academy, you have access to this practice file, so you can follow along. To do so, all you have to do is jump into the group and then go and download the practice file. Now, let's go ahead and jump into the computer and take a look at how we can move the ball using ON1 Photo Raw. All right, so here we are inside of ON1, and you can see the practice file here. Pretty straightforward. We have a ball that is in the center of the frame. Now, what I want to do is move the ball over here to the right just a little bit to make it look like he kicked the ball pretty far. And the idea here is, one, the ball needs to be cut out, and then two, it just needs to be moved. So it's really a straightforward process. Now, there's a few different ways that you can approach this particular technique. And so I'm going to show you all of the ways in this video, and then you choose the one that makes the most sense based off of the scenario that you're working with. Now, this particular image, I want to point out the background is pretty out of focus. It's pretty blurry. If the background was a little bit more in focus, this technique is going to be a little bit more challenging, but this is the type of image that you would probably want to do this on, where the background is a little bit more out of focus as opposed to it being in focus. And so the first method is probably the easiest, but it's also the one that's more hit or miss. All right. And so stick around and I'll show you the long or the more surefire method. So first thing, what we're going to do is come over here to our retouching group, and we are going to select the retouching group. I happen to have the perfect eraser selected. You'll have whatever you last had selected. We're going to come up here to the healing brush, and we're going to select that. Now, if you don't see these little double circles for the healing brush, if you hit the drop down arrow, it's going to give you a few different options. You can also press the letter Q on your keyboard. That's going to activate the healing brush tool, or you can just click that little drop down arrow, come over here and select healing brush. So now that we have that selected, I want to have a relatively low feather. So I'm at 30 for my brush, and you can see what that looks like here on the screen. And then the most important part that you want to do here inside of the healing brush tool is come up here to where it says mode, and in this drop down you want to actually select move. Sometimes it'll be on heal or stamp. You want to select move, and this is going to allow us to literally copy the pixels and move them. And so now that we have that set up, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, hitting Command and plus just to get a little closer to the ball here. And then to recenter this, I'm just going to hold down my space bar and then click and drag to somewhere around here just to make it a little bit easier to work. Now, all I'm going to do is with the brush, I have that feather. It's going to go over the edge of the ball. And the reason, there's a little bit of like out of focus aspect of the ball that I want to keep in my pixel selection, but I also want that to be the place where the feather begins. And so I'm just going to click and paint all the way around, leaving that feather outside of the ball. And it's okay if a little bit more gets selected, because I think that's going to help make this a little bit more believable. And again, since that background is a little out of focus, it's going to make this even easier to blend as we move this over. And so the first thing I like to do is go all the way around the ball, so I know that I have the entire perimeter selected, and then I'll come into the center and fill that in. Now, some notes here: make sure and be very confident that you do this all in one click. As of right now, I have not let go of the mouse button. I'm still holding it down, because as soon as I do, it's going to make this selection, and then I'm not going to be able to re-modify that. And so what I like to do is come back over the edge and just repaint a little bit in areas where maybe it didn't look like it captured all of the circumference of the ball. And with this particular method, it's important that you do this because you'll leave a little bit of a ring and it won't look very good. So now I'm going to let go, and it has now copied the pixels, and you can see instantly what just happened. It took the pixels from this area and moved them over the foot. Now you have two little icons here. You have a green icon. This is the area that's being replaced. And then you have the red icon. This is the area that's moving the pixels that you wanted to move to the new area. And now that's sampling his foot in this case, because that's where the ball is. Well, what I'm going to do is just click this red square, and then I'm just going to move the ball all the way around into a new location, maybe somewhere right here. And you can see that it has now sampled the background here and has replaced the area where the ball used to be with that background, and the ball has now moved a little bit further. And so if I hit the blue check mark, you can see I've now moved the ball. Now, I mentioned earlier, if you don't get the entirety of the ball, you get like this weird little halo ring around the outside. And that's what we're seeing right here on the screen. And so that's why I say that this particular method is hit or miss. And so I want to show you a more for sure solid method of doing this. All right. And so what I'm going to do is just reset this image using the reset button. And it's going to put the ball right back where it belongs, and it zooms us out as well. So I'm going to make sure that we zoom back in, because for this method, you want to zoom in just a bit here. Okay. Because we really want to be able to see the perimeter of the ball or whatever you're cutting out. Now, a ball is an easy thing to move because it's just a big circle. And so one of my favorite tools for cutting out simple shapes like rectangles, squares, and circles is the line mask tool. Now, this technique is a little bit more advanced, but I think that once you learn it, you're not going to want to use a different method for this type of photo manipulation technique. And so what we're going to do is come over to layers. Now, if your layers is collapsed, or perhaps it's docked over here on the left side, you can just access layers wherever it may be. To the best of my knowledge, you cannot hide layers. You can only dock it on the right side or the left side. But you'll find wherever it says layers, and then you will click to activate or to expand the layers module. Once you have that expanded, you're going to come down here and you're going to click this duplicate layer icon. This is going to make 2 copies of the layer. So when you click it, boom, I now have 2 copies. The bottom copy, I'm going to label this background. So we'll just title it BG. And then the top layer, I'm going to double click to rename. And then I'm going to call this ball. So now I have my layers organized. I have the ball on top, which is very important. And then I have the background on the bottom. At the moment, I just have duplicates of the same image. Both of these have the ball and both of these have the background. Well, I want to turn off the topmost layer that says ball, and this is going to keep me with just the background layer. Now, there's a very faint light gray selection over the ball layer, but if I come down and click on the BG layer, that gray selection has now highlighted the background layer. It's very important that you know which layer you're working with when you grab a tool. And so identify which layer has this light gray background or selection on it, like so. And then what we're going to do is come over here to the retouching tool. And I want to use the perfect eraser. Now, I will give note that if you decide to use the generative eraser, which is here, you will end up with a third layer inside of your layers module. And for the sake of not causing confusion, I'm just going to use the perfect eraser because it's going to keep us with a single layer inside, or the two layers, I should say, inside of our layers module to make this a little bit easier. Now, what I want to do is erase everything around the ball and the ball. And so using the perfect eraser, I'm just going to go over the corners, or the edges, I should say, because there's no corners on a circle. I'm going to go over the edges of the ball and go all the way around until I get to the end here. And then I'm just going to fill this in. Again, I have not lifted up on my mouse, and I could have made this brush a little bit larger to make the selection faster, but I just decided to go with what I had. Now that I have everything selected, normal eraser, I'm going to let this go. Perfect eraser is going to fill in the blank for us. And that looks pretty good. If I hit Command and 0, Control and 0 if you're on a PC, you can see we now no longer have a ball in that location. And this is good because now we can go and cut out the ball. So what I'm going to do, and what I recommend you do, is I am going to turn off the background layer by clicking this little circle here. You get this checkered background. This is saying you have no pixels that are being shown, and that's true because we don't have any of our layers turned on. So that means the pixels are completely not showing right now. But as soon as I turn on the ball layer, well, now we see a picture again because we are now telling ON1 to display the pixels. That's very important for this next step because when we cut out the ball, we're going to see that transparent background again. All right. And so I'm going to come back up here to where it says ball. I'm going to click in this open gray space to select that layer because now I need to start working on the layer that says ball to cut it out. I'm going to come over here to my masking tools. And so clicking on the layer and then click the little rectangle with a circle to the left of ball. That's going to activate the masking properties for the layer of the ball. All right. We don't want to click on the masking properties for the layer for the BG. Okay. We don't want to do that. We want to activate the layer for the ball, and you should get a little white thumbnail that looks like this. Then I'm going to come over here to my masking properties. Yours may be nested. Mine are floating in this little window here. And I can confirm I am on the layer and it's the ball layer. All right. You want to do that. If you're not seeing this, it's probably because your target mask is collapsed. So if you click on target mask, it will expand this section. So that way you can see that you have the layer for the ball. And now with mask layers, I don't have a mask actually on this particular layer yet. And so I need to come over here to mask layers. And I'm going to hit the plus icon. And then I told you that the line mask tool is a great way of cutting out shapes, especially when they're simple shapes like a circle. And so I'm going to go ahead and select the line mask tool. And this gives me the line mask workspace. Now I need to zoom in to make sure that I'm selecting the right areas of the ball. And so I'm going to hit Command and plus to zoom in. Now, if you have ever used Photoshop or any tool where there is a pen tool, that's essentially what the line mask tool is. Now, what I'm going to do is show you a technique that is different than probably most people would think. A lot of people, they would just click on the perimeter of the ball like so, and then they would just go around and do all of this and stuff like that. And then they would finish up, right? And then they would come into the center of the lines and try to even these out to make it round. And that just takes way too much time. Let me undo all of this. And I'm going to show you the easier way of doing this. So I want you to imagine 4 corners on the ball. All right. We're going to draw a diamond essentially. And so I'm going to start right here. And then I'm going to come up to the top of the ball, maybe right here. And then I'm going to come to the even or parallel with this side on the outside of the ball. So maybe somewhere right around here. And then I'm going to do the same thing, even or parallel with the top node there, but doing this at the bottom of the ball. And you'll see I'm creating a diamond. And then I'm just going to come over here and finish off the selection. Now you're probably like, well, Chris, that does not look like a circle. And you're correct. But what I can do is hover over the center of the line and I get this little node here. And so if I click and drag that out, you'll notice that I can now reshape this to go around the circumference of the ball. And I can move these nodes to make it fit just the way that I need. So I'm just going to readjust the initial nodes here. And I'm going to make sure that I get a good curve of the ball. And the reason why I do it this way is the less nodes, the more smooth the selection will be, specifically with round items. All right. And so I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that I get a good smooth selection around the ball here. And one more time, right around here. And the cool thing is this is completely non-destructive. So I can come back and modify this. Unlike with the previous method where I showed you using the move tool inside of the healing brush, I can always come back to this line mask tool if I need to add more or take something away. That's the beautiful thing about using this method. But now I am faced with this, I guess this option of, do I need to paint or erase? Well, if you look at my little paint bucket, you'll notice that I have a little line in it, which is the erase icon. If I come up here and click paint, then I get the paint icon. Well, I want to erase everything outside of the selection here, which is the ball. So I'm going to move my paint bucket anywhere outside of the ball and then just click. And there's our transparent squares. So now what we've done so far, if I hit Command and 0, what we've done is we have only selected the ball and we've told ON1, I only want you to show the ball on this layer. Don't show me anything else. And the reason for that is we have everything else on that background layer. So we don't need the information that's here on the ball, or I'm sorry, we only need the information for the ball. And so I'm going to click the blue check mark and that gives me the selection here. And if I come over to my layers and I turn on the background, you'll notice we've now recreated the initial image, but something fundamentally has changed. If I come over to the left tool well and I grab the transform tool, I can click and drag and look, I can freely move this ball wherever I want it to go. And so if I want the ball to go here, I can put it there. But let's say I wanted this ball to go over an area of high contrast, all right? That's going to be this fence. You'll notice you start to see kind of the outline and it just looks like you just plopped a ball right there. And it doesn't look very convincing that that's where it was. You could bring it down here and it looks more convincing right there. But let's say I wanted the ball to be up here. Well, how do I fix that? Well, I'm going to go back to my zoom tool just to make sure that I don't move this around. And you'll also notice I have a line here. So I'll show you how to fix that here in a bit, because we don't want that on our overall mask. But to fix the ball and make it look like it belongs, what we'll do is we will click on the layer for the ball, click on mask layers, and then we're going to click this little 3-line menu for the line mask tool. We're going to hit that and we're going to click on refine. Now, this portion is kind of you have to play with it for your image because every image is going to use something different. But essentially, you need to adjust the levels that are around the edges to make it look or make it blend a little bit better. And so I'm going to grab this center node for the levels and pull it to the right. And you'll notice that on this image, because I'm brightening that transition point, it looks like it's been cut out and it fits more in the space. All right. Some images you may need to pull this little center slider down towards the left to make the edges a little bit darker. But since I'm putting this on a brighter background, what I really need to do is make the edge transition a little bit brighter. And so by pulling this center slider more to the right, it just makes that look a little bit more believable. And then we'll hit OK. And let me go ahead and take a look here. And it looks like the area that I was talking about fixing, it cleaned itself up by using that level slider. And so here we are with our final product. Again, I can turn off the ball. It is no longer tied to the background because we erased it from the background. And then I can turn it back on if I want it to be there. If I want to move it around again, I can come over to transform and I can just slide this ball. I could put it right over the kid's head if I wanted to. I could do whatever I want. I can even move it down here if I want it. So I think you get the idea. This is the technique. You can do this with pretty much anything inside of your photography, as long as you can get a clean selection. The reason we were able to get a clean selection in this particular case is because the ball was originally on this out of focus area. And so when you're making your photo selections and you want to do this particular technique, pay attention to what is in the background behind the area that you want to cut out. If it's deep in focus, you're going to have to be really, really precise. With this ball, I didn't have to be as precise, even though I did zoom in and I used the line mask tool. So I'd love to hear your questions down in the comment section below. Again, if you'd like to pick up ON1 Photo Raw, consider using the coupon code Freebowl Photos 20. I do make a commission from everyone who uses it, but it is at no extra cost to you. It's a win-win and a great way of supporting the channel. Now, if you'd like to learn more about using ON1 Photo Raw, I recommend signing up for a one-on-one training call with me. A link for that can be found in the description box below, and I'll help you learn how to use the software to the best of your ability and get your creative vision out and into the world a little bit faster. So with that being said, until next time, I want you to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.